The golden morning light spilled across London as a hush fell over the city, millions of eyes fixed on a single moment. At Kensington Palace, Catherine, her hands trembling over Diana's sapphire necklace, prepared to step into history. Across the hall, William adjusted his medals, his face a mix of duty and love. This wasn't just another royal ceremony. It was the culmination of decades, a story that began at university and now arrived at destiny's doorstep. Outside, streets overflowed with flags, voices, and hope. Yet inside the palace walls, what weighed heavier than any crown was the knowledge that the entire world was about to witness a transformation. If stories of love, history, and destiny inspire you, you're in the right place. Stick with us as we relive William and Kate's coronation, the pageantry, the personal struggles, and the unforgettable human moments. And hey, if you enjoy this journey through history, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and share it with friends who love a good story. It helps more than you know. The sun rose gently over London, its golden light spilling into Kensington Palace. Inside, Catherine stood before her mirror, the sapphire necklace of Princess Diana resting against her collarbone. Her fingers trembled as she touched it. It wasn't just a jewel. It was a memory, a weight of expectation, a bridge between past and present. She whispered a steadying breath, aware that by nightfall she would no longer be only the Princess of Wales, but Queen Consort. Behind her the door creaked softly. William entered, his naval uniform immaculate, medals glinting. He placed a hand on her shoulder and asked quietly, "Are you ready?" His eyes, filled with both duty and love, met hers in the mirror. 20 years had passed since they first met at university, yet in this moment, it felt like their journey had only just begun. The children burst into the room, their laughter breaking the tension. George in his miniature uniform, Charlotte twirling, little Louis firing off questions. For a brief moment, the palace walls echoed not with duty, but with joy. Still beneath the laughter, Catherine felt it, the weight of history pressing closer, as the world awaited their first step toward destiny. The palace gates opened, and with them, centuries of tradition rolled into motion. The gold state coach, gleaming like a relic from another age, waited to carry William and Catherine through the heart of London. Its gilded panels caught the morning sun, sending shards of light across the gathered crowds. Catherine drew a breath as she stepped inside, her silk train flowing like water, her eyes catching the first glimpse of the sea of people outside. Hundreds of thousands lined the streets. Some had camped overnight just to secure their view. Children perched on their parents' shoulders, flags fluttered, and elderly faces damp with tears remembered coronations long past. As the coach began its slow journey, cheers rose like a tide. William waved, his gestures practiced, yet his gaze kept returning to his wife, this girl he had met in the halls of university, now glowing with a queen's quiet strength. Along Piccadilly, a choir of schoolchildren, once visited by Catherine, lifted their voices in song. She pressed her hand against the glass, her smile tender as if reaching back across years of service and connection. This was no ordinary procession. It was history moving through the streets, and the world was watching. As the golden coach drew to a halt before Westminster Abbey, the air itself seemed to vibrate. Bells rang out, echoing across London, summoning the city to witness history. The Abbey's ancient spires stretched heavenward, their stones worn by 1,000 years of kings and queens, now waiting for William and Catherine to write their chapter. Stepping down carefully, Catherine's ivory silk gown rippled behind her like liquid moonlight. William offered his hand, steady and sure, though his own heart pounded with the enormity of the moment. Inside, the Abbey glowed with candlelight, a union of sacred ritual and modern faces. World leaders sat beside teachers, Nobel laureates near community workers, all gathered under one roof. A children's choir began to sing, their voices so pure they seemed to lift the very arches above. George, Charlotte, and Louis followed their parents down the aisle, small figures threading through towering history. Then the silence came. The Archbishop's words, ancient yet alive, filled the space. William knelt, and St. Edward's crown, gleaming with a halo of firelight, was lowered onto his head. A king was born. Moments later, Catherine bowed her head. When the queen consort's crown touched her hair, she rose transformed. No longer just Kate, but Queen Catherine. The roar that greeted them on Buckingham Palace's balcony was like thunder rolling across the mall. A sea of flags, faces, and voices stretched further than the eye could see, hundreds of thousands united in a single surge of joy. For a heartbeat, Catherine paused, her breath caught. The shy girl who once worried about speaking in public now stood crowned, gazing upon her people as their queen. William reached for her hand, grounding her. Together they stepped forward, and the crowd erupted again, as though the very stones of the palace trembled with celebration. George, Charlotte, and Louis joined their parents, their presence softening centuries of formality into something deeply human. This was not just monarchy. It was family, love, continuity. Then came the flypast. Jets streaked across the sky, painting ribbons of red, white, and blue high above London. Catherine instinctively squeezed William's hand, a gesture simple yet profound. Cameras captured it instantly, a moment that would echo in photographs for generations. Below, strangers embraced, children waved, and tears of pride fell freely. For those watching from Tokyo to Toronto, it was more than pageantry. It was a story of resilience, love, and hope, written across the sky. As evening fell, London shimmered with fireworks, their colors dancing above the Thames like echoes of the day's triumph. Inside Buckingham Palace, however, the atmosphere softened. Behind gilded doors and away from the roar of the crowds, William and Catherine finally allowed themselves to breathe. The crowns rested quietly on their dressing tables, their jewels glinting in candlelight. But the true weight they carried was not made of gold. It was the promise they had just made to millions. William removed his uniform jacket, his shoulders heavy yet steady. Catherine slipped off her shoes, her gown pooling around her like silk clouds. For the first time that day, they were simply husband and wife. They looked at each other, exhaustion mingling with awe. "We did it," Catherine whispered, though both knew the coronation was not an ending but a beginning. Beyond the balcony cheers, beyond the global cameras, a lifetime of service now stretched before them. Together, they had stepped into history, not as distant monarchs but as a couple who had grown, stumbled, and loved their way to this moment. Hand in hand, they faced the future, their reign just beginning, their story forever entwined with the hopes of their people.